Sprinkle in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you got a stew going.
Watch this. I call this one the Dingwall maneuver.
This is the second to last episode of Star Trek Prodigy Season 1. Supernova. Prodigy. Protostar. Proto means it's not done yet. A baby star. I guess when the star dies it goes supernova. Is the title of this episode a bad omen? Is this season going to end in a not happy way? Are we going to destroy the protostar? It's not impossible. This show, despite how it feels, how it looks, and how uplifting it is, there is moments of darkness here and there. There's a little nugget of crunchy in the soft, if you will, and sometimes they can come off as a little bit disturbing, a little bit eerie. Dreadnought, very scary, very fearsome, on full display this episode. I reiterate, are we going to supernova the protostar? Is this the end for our heroes? Is this the end for Starfleet? Overall, an ominous and dreary episode. I didn't particularly love it. I didn't really hate it. But it misses more than it hits. That's a bad thing when we're coming on the end of a season. I would be a lot more upset with this episode if this season were very bad. It wasn't at all. So I can't really get too bent out of shape over the first part of the two-parter season finale. What gifts did we get under our tree? Well, what we got was an episode that moves the plot forward, ultimately ends up nowhere significantly different than it began, full of contrivances. I would venture a guess, logical inconsistencies. But a theme and a moral construct, if you will, that while it's there, while it's present, it announces itself, okay? Your theme, like symbolism, is a little bit like a good quality perfume. It should be discovered, not announced. Let's discover what's in Supernova, Part 1. Last episode, we were warping to the Federation. We got there. All these ships appeared, as they do in modern Trek, all at once. Because in modern Trek, space is small. It's not like we planned this for a long time. This isn't like the Dominion War. This is just on a moment's notice. We can just have a zillion ships on the protostar, no problem. Call it a contrivance if you want to. The point of the matter is that we're there. Janeway is on the Dauntless. Our episode opens with Janeway in what I assume is the brig. I think this is on the Dauntless after she has been confined to it based on Dr. Newham's medical assessment that she is not fit for duty. He is totally within his rights to do that. However, he is also totally in his rights to monitor the situation. One security officer is guarding the brig. A simple appeal to emotion. Janeway, I was on the Voyager when you saved my people from blah blah blah. I won't get into it in this review. And now I'm going to save you. You see, thematically, yes, we saved the Diviner, and now the Diviner helps us, in a manner of speaking. We saved this person on the Voyager, and now they're helping us. Yes, it fits, but I'm going no on just how lucky it is. We just happened to be guarded by this random security officer who let Janeway out based on, like I said, an appeal to emotion. You're done. The security officer is gone. Janeway is officially on medical leave in the brig for her own safety, and you just let her out. Now, she sounds totally different than she did when Dal was controlling her mind. I grant you that. But where was Dr. Newham? Janeway, wow. if I'm the security officer, Janeway's making a lot of sense right now. Dr. Newham, could you get down here and look at this? Okay, I'll be right down. Yeah, she sounds totally different. Let her out. That's my professional opinion. We could have saved this contrivance, get out of jail free card, if you will, if we just had Dr. Newham there for a second. But we didn't. And that's what I was greeted with when this episode started. Just luck, emotion, and the absence of Dr. Newham when his presence was needed. Apparently nobody watching security cameras, and a security officer throwing her career away to let out Janeway when she does not know what has happened to Janeway, and her opinion is not worth what Dr. Newham's opinion is worth in this situation, given that she has been put in that brig, sequestered away on a medical emergency, if you will. It's a bold breach of conduct. That's how this episode started. Like, not 5 minutes later, we're trying to figure out how to arrest control back of the Protostar. It's been totally taken over by the living construct for a few episodes now. Makes sense. But Zero just says, we need a hardware solution. And I kid you not, the statement made by Zero is that they have hot-wired the Protostar like it's a car from 300 and some odd years ago. Why didn't we do that before? I've said this in a review, in a past review. We can see the strings. This episode fails in that I can see the strings. I can see how the puppet is moving. I see how the magician is doing his tricks. We need these things to happen for dramatic reasons. We can't have the finale without being able to fly the Protostar around, dodging attacks and whatnot. How do we get back control of the Protostar? Zero can just hotwire it. We need to get Janeway out of the brig. Let's just put the security officer there who remembers her from the Voyager. Having learned nothing from Janeway with regards to proper conduct and command hierarchy, you'd think she would know from having been on the Voyager for a while, I guess not. Protostar is back under the command of our crew, who admittedly do a great job controlling that ship. Dal's captainry is effortless now. It is direct. It is systematic. He has grown so much. He performs valiantly as a captain here, as do the other characters in their specific roles. It's great to see our crew come together like this. There is a moment where our crew operation here, during this time of extreme stress, is comparable to what we've seen from some of the best crews in Star Trek. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It's just ruined by so many strange inconsistencies in this episode. And strange, like I said, acts of writers fixing things. Sprinkle in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you got a stew going. What you end up with is an episode that doesn't make much sense. It gets its point across, but like I said, missing more than it hits. That's kind of a problem, especially when we're this far into the season, as in the second to last episode, for that matter. The villain's plan goes off without a hitch. Essentia has essentially asked Jellicoe, we need to get a party on that ship. What are we going to do? What? Admiral Janeway is in the brig? She was, a day ago, she was fine when she said the Protostar has snuck in a weapon into Federation territory. What happened? I'm glad they're not ruining Jellicoe. They have more than another episode to do it. They have one more episode to take a dump on Jellicoe. They better not. However, what this amounts to is we need to get a team onto the Protostar. And luckily, the team to go on the Protostar happens to just be Essentia and on other people from the Dauntless. It just, Jellicoe, the first people he was talking to about the Protostar was the U.S.S. Dauntless, Alright, you guys go onto the protostar. Why not? We don't have a crack security team to go on it. We've got ships everywhere in the vicinity. Why don't you guys do it? We could have solved it by having the U.S.S. Dauntless just get there way before the other ships. You see what I mean? If we had to just not overextended our creative reach here, we could have just had it be more simple, more logical, and make more sense, right? We needed all these ships here for dramatic reasons, because this is modern Trek, I guess. Oh wait, how do we explain why it is that it's the U.S.S. Dauntless that gets to have a crew onto the protostar? Let's just not. Jellicoe just talked to them. You guys go on the ship. Okay. And for whatever reason, Essentia decides to transform back to her Vauna cat form before transporting over? Why not just go on board like normal with the other Starfleet officers? You get on board, you have your comm badge. I assume that once you get a Starfleet comm badge on that ship, it's over. You connect to the Dauntless and ask them to broadcast a ship-wide signal, and here's the signal, and it's from the protostar's computer. But that's not how it happens. Dramatically, like this is an action movie or a cartoon or something, we have to get to the bridge to make this happen, so we can have dramatic action scene and running and fighting and getting hurt and whatnot. Essentially gets a scar on her face, like a mustache-twirling villain. No blood, but a visible impact. It's a little bit spooky. It's a little bit scary, as is Dreadnought. Dreadnought, by the way, is in top form in this episode. You know me, I love Dreadnought. I love Murph. Murph fights Dreadnought. It's awesome. They're forces of nature, you see. Dreadnought is just the force of evil, and Murph is the force of good, and they come head to head. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Murph's weakness is being frozen. Murph seemed totally invincible until Dreadnought just went and iced Murph up, and now Murph is on ice. A combat scene that entails between all of our main characters. Gravity bomb. Zero is disabled. Dal is clung to the wall with some kind of a boomerang rammed onto his head. Creepy looking. And Murph is, of course, frozen. Our characters are in a sorry state. You know, if you attack Starfleet head on with guns and whatnot, if you attack their boarding party, you are crossing a line. This is a conversation between Dal and Gwyn. What I predict is going to be a classic moment. They're having a private discussion. Gwyn is like, I need to be the one to tell you this. She's going to tell him that Starfleet doesn't accept augments. Even though we know that Dr. Jago a few episodes ago can actually alter your DNA. So there's a hope for augments now. There's a chance that Dal could avail himself of this extra Federation technology to reverse his genetics back to what it should be. His like base form, if you will. We're not done yet with Dal and Starfleet. He hasn't put that together yet, even though we've been to that planet and we've seen him alter his own DNA. As does Essentia. So I'm not totally sure why we didn't put that together yet. However, Dal mistakenly thinks that Gwyn is going to say, I love you. She actually says, Starfleet won't accept augments. So Dal steals a kiss. And brief moments of brilliance in this episode shine through what is otherwise a dull and mean episode. Dal tries to kiss her. Whoa, what are you doing? I thought we were going to share a moment and we felt the same. An interesting juxtaposition. He goes from that to being told by Gwyn that Starfleet won't accept augments, and then he takes the gun and says, what amounts to, I'm going to sacrifice myself to fight these people if I can't be in Starfleet anyway. Everybody deserves a place to be. There's your theme. Our themes for this whole season, I would venture a guess, is that it's about belonging, where your home is, basically, and communication. You'll notice that the living construct, once it has broadcast its messages fleet-wide and is now wreaking havoc on Starfleet, has interrupted the universal communication systems. Translators are not operating. Dal says, just like on Tars Lamora. As if I needed that to be announced. Like I said, the theme should be discovered, not announced. It should be a subtle thing that you pick up on when you think about. It should reward the repeat viewing, not be shoved in your face like this. And I hate to say, on that front, the episode doesn't get any better from that point. I guess, had I been a more callous individual, I could have predicted what would happen in this episode. I chose not to, but what happens is exactly like what we've seen in Discovery, exactly like what we've seen in Lower Decks, and par for the course for action adventure series, par for the course for sci-fi action, if you will. The boarding party is Essentia, Dreadnought, and the Diviner. Not sure why the Diviner's there. Why did we need to take Dreadnought or the Diviner? Why couldn't we just take Essentia? Why didn't we just take the Starfleet security crew, like I said before? They're not going to think anything strange is happening when you just try to call Starfleet from your comm badge. Maybe I got it wrong, but I thought Starfleet comm badge on the Protostar equals the end of the world. Gwyn and Essentia get into a fight. It looks stilted. The animation is not what I remember this show looking like. It looks a little bit weak, a little bit robotic. It's interesting seeing a battle between two Vanakat using that strange shape-shifting metal material. It's very cool. At the last moment, the Diviner presses the button, completes his mission, sends the transmission, and then tries to get back at the Vindicator for threatening his daughter, his progeny, and throws the heirloom back. She catches it and then impales him with it. And we've taken our villain, challenged him, let him complete his mission, and then allowed our characters to mourn him. He's gone on a great emotional journey, and there's a deep thematic connection this makes with the audience that I think I'm going to be pondering for a long time in the future. Our characters mournfully watch their former slave master die for defending his daughter, who loves, I would venture to say, our characters in Dal, Rok-tahk, Jankum, Zero, Murph. We just allow ourselves to embrace the emotion they feel when they watch him die. In this moment, the logic of his past is not at the forefront. We are experiencing the loss of someone that Gwyn cares about. And in the last moment, he just says, please try to unify your people. You are my spirit's song, Gwyndala, and he fades away. Something happened when he faded away. I don't know what happens with the Vanakat when they die. I guess they just fade away like this is some kind of a video game. But he turned into like a blue glowing dust, and it looked like something happened to Gwyndala's head. I'm not sure what that means. That could mean something. We may see something about that crop up in the next part of this two-parter. I hope so. That would be an interesting way to end it. Maybe Gwyn has inherited the Diviner's memories, and that's why he did not bother explaining how to get to Solum. Maybe we're going to Solum. I'm starting to think we're not going to save Chakotay until season 2. I'm starting to worry about that. Starting to worry about old Choki being stuck in future Solum. Just hanging out, skipping rocks, shooting the breeze with other Starfleet Protostar crew. Essentia escapes by wearing Dreadnought. We've known Dreadnought is kind of a transformer for a few episodes now. He looks like the environment he exists in. He forms himself from the ship parts around him. he is essentially like a viral entity that can be transmitted. Previously, he constructed himself from the replicator of the protostar in a past episode. I'm wondering if dreadnoks are not appearing on all the fleet-wide ships after this broadcast went out. By the way, they all cartoonishly turn red with their lights. We just saw this in Lower Decks. The Alito turns autonomous and all its lights turn red. Now it's evil. Red lights equals bad. That happens again in this episode. And admittedly, it worked on me. The ship scenes. The ships look fantastic. We saw the Defiant. I rewinded it and looked. Yes, it was the Defiant. We've seen the U.S.S. Sovereign. Fantastic display. It's a shame it made so little surface level sense. We've ended up having the Essentia wear Dreadnought like a spacesuit and/or space capsule, exit through the roof of the bridge module on the protostar. We did get to see the protostar window bridge module reconstruct itself. That was cool. Availing itself of technology that is experimental and not necessarily fleet-wide. Very cool. However, what was not cool was Dal did not shoot Essentia. He was pointing the gun, but didn't shoot Essentia. Maybe it would have been good to just stun her? I don't know. The message has gone fleet-wide. I don't know what you do now, other than thematically say, communication. We can't communicate. This is like Tars Lamora. Guess what? Gwendala was taught various alien languages in order to pit different species against each other. Just because the Diviner was a bad guy, just because he was a meanie head, now he can use that power for good. Gwen, you're the captain now. You talk to him. And Gwen communicates to Klingons, makes an appeal to wishy-washy belonging and the vastness of space, like this is Star Trek Discovery. Guess what? I'm a better diplomat than that. I know what to say to a Klingon. I'd be like, guess what? You're duty-bound by your Klingon honor to help people who have helped you, are you not? So get in there. And they'd be like, yeah, kapla. Right? But somehow this speech from Gwendala works on Klingons, and they just arrive. Would you look at that? It's exactly like every other Star Trek season ending in the last few years. We get a save at the last minute from who knows what. It just keeps happening. Over and over and over. The last half of this season of Prodigy is rife with stuff that frankly belongs in lesser seasons of Star Trek, lesser Star Trek shows than this. I expected a little more. That being said, this is part 1 of 2, so they still have room to improve. Essentia is gone, and we're surrounded by red, evil Starfleet ships, although we're being defended by Klingons, I think Ferengi, perhaps Orion ships, I think, Vulcan ships, and I don't know how they know what they're doing. This is a complicated operation. We're defending Starfleet ships from themselves? How is this going to work? While Starfleet ships are arriving. I will say this, I'm at a loss for how they're going to solve it. Maybe that's a good thing. You know, it makes you want to watch the next episode. There's some mystery there. Hopefully it just doesn't come out of nowhere. Hopefully it's been planted in my subconscious how to solve this, and when I see how they do it, I'll say, oh, I should have thought of that. That's what you want. You want your brain to say, I should have thought of that. And I felt that with Moral Star Part 1 and Part 2. Hopefully I'm going to be feeling it with this too, because there's room to improve for Supernova Part 2. Musically, it was quiet when it knew it should have been. When something scary was happening, it was quiet. But when something sad and mournful was happening, there is a dirge, a sad, groaning music when Starfleet was attacking itself, losing its ability to communicate. I guess some of these characters that are on these Starfleet ships, like Tyses, who I think is possibly the first officer of the Dauntless, doesn't immediately know Standard. He starts talking Andorian, and it goes like this, suggesting he doesn't know what's being said, so it's not just a one-off accident. Very strange. Sad, and the music accompanies it in a meaningful way. It doesn't break the bank creatively. It's not super interesting. It's not as good as the past few episodes, but it's there. I heard it. Thematically, yes, we're hitting on the themes of communication, on the themes of belonging, having faith in people you didn't originally trust to walk you through, hand in hand, a common struggle. Yes, I get the point of this. I get how the plot plays into it, but it's a little bit heavy-handed. Even at times, it feels like I'm just being talked to. It feels like a few of these lines were meant for the audience. I never like that. I never like when characters deliver a monologue, like, to me. Like, it felt a little bit on the nose and how it's trying to get this theme across. It worked perfectly well for me before they started explaining the theme. I got it. And I think people would do well by appreciating the subtlety a little bit more in this regard. Visually, we got to see a lot of canon ships. Although, you'll note that these ships, it's basically the Sovereign, the Akira, and the Centaur. And the Protostar. Decora. You know, there was like Klingon Bird of Prey. There was like 5 or 6 different ships, and that's all we saw. Could have been a little bit more varied. We could have seen an Intrepid class. We could have seen maybe a Steam Runner. We could have seen Ambassador class. That'd be really cool. I'd like to see that one again. You know, it felt like it was just Starfleet's greatest hits, right? Sovereign and Akira. We did get to see the Akira class rotate its torpedo assembly. Excellent. But when it's just the greatest hits, it makes one wonder, you know, where are all the dumb ships? Where's the ugly ships? You know me, I like an ugly ship. Where's the Curry? Where's the Oberth? They were around in TNG. Why not? Bring them back. Where's the Miranda class? It's kind of beside the point. It's not really a complaint. I guess I don't want to, you know, complain about having seen the Akira class flying around. That's always good. Visually, we're doing good. Musically, we're doing it right. Thematically, we're hammering it home a little too hard. We're applying the makeup a little thick, if you will. This is Supernova Part 1. Like I said, logical problems, hope and luck are not a strategy. A few shining moments of fun where Dal steals his kiss from Gwendala that made me laugh. It's juvenile, it's cute, it's innocent, but it's a comedic error, I'll say. And maybe Gwen feels the same. We'll see if she steals one from Dal in the next part. I'll be watching. Will you be watching? This episode, Supernova Part 1. All that being said, winning visually and musically, can't save it from all these logical inconsistencies that were crammed so close together. I mean, the security officer just happens to let Janeway out of the brig with no approval from anybody. Zero just hot wires the ship in the blink of an eye in 5 seconds just because Zero feels like it, and we didn't do that earlier. Essentia takes the complicated and dangerous way to take over the Protostar. They bring the Diviner along for some reason. It just goes on. We escape the trap laid for us by Dreadnought, by rok-tahk taking Jankum's arm and using the flamethrower to light Murph on fire to melt Murph, and then rip that thing off of Zero's head, and then Dal gets out of there just to fail. All this effort, and we just failed. We just allowed the signal to broadcast. We've essentially failed. We've started this episode between a rock and a hard place. And we've ended up crushed between that rock and that hard place and essentially dead, and I don't know how we're getting out of it. All these reasons, I'm going to have to go ahead and give Star Trek Prodigy episode 19, second to last, I assume, Supernova Part 1, a 4. I expected a little more. I expected a little bit more sense. I expected a little bit more strategy on behalf of our characters. A few bright moments in a mostly dimly lit room. That's Supernova Part 1. If you liked it, that's great. You can tell me why you did. If you didn't, that's fine too. I'll have you know 4 is not a 3, and a 3 is definitely better than a 2, which is better than a 1, which is a lot better than a 0. I have yet to give anything a 0, but there's been things close to 0 before, but this ain't it. This is a 4. It's a miss for me. I'm definitely skipping it in the future. Like I said, we didn't get very far ahead with this one. We're almost back where we started, but things have gotten worse. How are we going to solve it? I'm interested in finding out. So that's good. At least I want to continue, and I don't want to just, go into a 13-hour-long depression nap. I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you next time I see you. Goodbye.